number 7. For some people, that's a lucky number. For others, there are biblical references to the number 7, and for some people like Cristiano Ronaldo, that is their number when they're playing football. So, what I've got here is a car. What does the number 7 have to do with this car? Well, this right here is the Mk7 Volkswagen Golf, and specifically what I've got here is the Volkswagen Golf GTI. The Volkswagen Golf was the car for city slickers and car enthusiasts alike. This right here is Volkswagen's most successful car, and on top of that, Volkswagen has sold so many of these cars, over 30 million to be exact. And what does that mean? This is the number 3 best-selling car in the entire world. Volkswagen introduced the Golf all the way back in 1974, and it's currently in its 8th generation. But what we're going to focus on today is the Mk7. This is the 7th generation. And at Volkswagen, the letters GTI have always stood for superior dynamic performance. With the 7th generation here, we're going to find out if that's still the case. Let's get into it. This car is powered by a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. Volkswagen has been making 4-cylinder engines for quite some time now. They've been making 5-cylinder engines, 4-cylinder engines, VR6s. And the GTI has, for the most part, always sported a 4-cylinder engine. What we've got here is a turbocharged 4-cylinder, and it produces 215 horsepower, 217 horsepower, and 258 pound-feet of torque, all right? So, pretty good figures, not too bad. Now, matched to this engine is either a standard 6-speed manual transmission, or you have the optional DSG gearbox. DSG meaning direct shift gearbox. It's basically fancy terms for the dual clutch automatic, double clutch automatic. Very fast shifts. I'm driving this car through the city right now, through some city suburbs, and it shifts pretty quickly under normal driving, but of course it's pretty responsive, and I do like it. I'm sure that the 6-speed manual would have been a lot more fun in a car that has the dynamic as this car does, but regardless, for those city slickers, for those who live in the city and they do a lot of stop-and-go traffic, the manual might be too much of a headache, so honestly, I don't think you could really go wrong with the DSG in this car as well. What we've got here, like I said, is the turbocharged 4-cylinder, and it has a lot of good pep. I'm coming to a stop right now. Brakes are pretty good as well. You got pretty large discs all around as well, especially since this is the GTI, this is the performance car. But anyway, this car weighs approximately 3,100 pounds, so it's a nice small-sized car, easy to maneuver, easy to drive. So I'm in the city right now, and it's easy to pick up and go. Driving it is pretty easily. I was doing some parallel parking earlier, but regardless, 3,100 pounds for a car is not that heavy. And when you couple that with the performance that the engine puts out, you essentially are getting a 0 to 60 that happens in about 5.7 seconds roughly. And I mean, that's pretty quick. It's not a slouch. It's not super fast, incredibly fast, ridiculous, but for an everyday car, more like a daily driver kind of a car, with a nice bit of performance incorporated in there as well, I figured that this is a car that is quite practical, but of course you get your performance in there as well for those who are spirited at heart. Now, one of the optional extras for the Volkswagen Golf GTI is the performance pack. Now, what this does is this nets you an additional 10 horsepower. This basically puts just the letters GTI on the front brakes, so it gives it a nice aesthetic touch. You also get black mirror caps, and then you also get red badging all throughout the car as well. So it's a nice option to kind of stand out from the crowd a little bit, from all the other GTI owners. Now, new for this car is a brand new differential, and essentially what it is it allows you to have more agile steering. So essentially what that means is you can go through turns a lot quicker, don't have to slow down as much, and of course that means a lot more spirited driving and a lot more fun. But essentially this is a system that is dubbed VAQ. Essentially what this is it incorporates a multi-plate coupler right between the differential cage and the right drive shaft, and essentially this controls the locking torque electro-hydraulically. That's automatically in plain English. The life cycle impulse, the facelift, as you will, for this car occurred in 2017. And what this is it's a refresh, and it It brought additional power, additional refinements to the engine. So essentially what you're getting is you're getting a power bump to 227 horsepower, and the performance pack car gets up to 241 horsepower. So on top of that, you also get exterior refinements to the car as well. So essentially what that brings is subtle improvements, changes to the bumper, front and rear bumper. Headlights are a little bit different. And as far as the interior goes, you also get improvements in here as well, which is also nice. Essentially, the infotainment screen is increased in size, and you also have an optional fully digital dashboard here, which you know, is a pretty nice feature considering this is a modern car. And on top of that, if we're going to talk about cool tech, the Volkswagen Golf Mk7 was also the first car in its class, the first compact car to actually incorporate gesture controls. So basically what this is you can change various settings, like change the volume of the car, change the radio station. And this is pretty cool because this is usually technology that you find in luxury cars like Mercedes, BMW, some of the more top-of-the-line models with all this breakthrough technology, but Volkswagen incorporated all the way down into the Golf. Now, another thing that the Volkswagen Golf GTI, specifically the Mk7 that it has, is it has the progressive steering ratio. Now, in plain English, what this means is there's a ratio that takes place where it adjusts the steering angle depending on the speed that you're going at and depending on the intensity of the turn. So in a nutshell, what this means is less effort throughout the turns, so you can drive the car a lot more effortlessly and won't fatigue you as much if you're, you know, going through an extended drive or through some canyons or some twisty roads. Some people might not like this because they like the old school feeling of the car. This car has electric power steering, which I guess you either love it or you hate it. Now, I mean, I guess I'm old school, so I like the more analog feel of cars, but for somebody who's going to use this car, who's going to drive it in the city, and tight turns matter, or ease of use matters, or anything like that, I can see why electric power steering is something that they might prefer, you know, in a newer car. When you look at other cars in this segment, you get a lot of pretty nice features, and you know, all of this is packaged together for $32,000, $34,000. Now, I'm sure with all the options, you can push $40,000, which is a lot of money for a car, especially, you know, when at that point you can get a BMW, you can get an Audi, you can get a fully loaded Camry, V6 with some extra change left over. But at the end of the day, you wanted a Volkswagen, you wanted a Golf GTI. You know, this is one of those cars where you get because you know what it is and you know what you want. Now, I just want to talk about the sound system real quick in this car. It's a pretty nice sound system. It's got 8 speakers all throughout. You got a subwoofer, and all of that is mated to a 400-watt amp. So if you are an audiophile like myself, you love music, you love loud music, clear music, you love high quality fidelity sound, you're gonna like this car. The Volkswagen Golf, you know, it's got the pedigree, it's got the history backing it up. This car has been around for just about 50 years now, and Volkswagen has kept perfecting this car over the generations, over all the years. This is Volkswagen's craft right here, or at least this is one part of their craft. The Golf is a pretty nice car. I mean, even if this was a base car, you know, it'd still be a nice car to get around in, especially if you just need basic transportation. But from a car enthusiast perspective, from somebody who enjoys driving and has a lot of fun doing it and is passionate about cars, I mean, I'm having a lot of fun driving this car, filming this review. So, granted, no car is perfect. You know, there are certain things that I'm thinking about when I'm driving this car. So, for example, Volkswagen has had a stigma of reliability. Depending on, you know, how you look at it, some people say Volkswagens are unreliable. They're notorious for, you know, having the check engine light on, because that's just how they are. Other people say the exact opposite. Other people say they're extremely reliable and they've had no headaches with them. But I don't know if that's because that's just the way it's been. They've just had no issues with them, or I don't know if that's because they're maintaining them, they're taking care of them. Now, you are supposed to take care of a car and maintain it, but some people just don't do that, and then the car falls apart, and then they say, well, this is the most unreliable car I've ever had, I'm never buying another one. But I mean, I don't know. The reason why I bring it up is because some people have had turbo issues, some people have had problems with the automatic transmission, but I'm sure that that's not really a problem until you get closer to over 100,000 miles. But other people have had coolant leaks. I mean, there's oil leaks, but I guess that's just stereotypical German car oil leaks, because these cars are designed for emissions, and I mean, they're not designed for emissions, but they got to incorporate that in as well. And what that means is the cars run super hot. So with all those heat cycles, of course, those gaskets are going to wear out. They're going to get pretty thin, and they just degrade over time. And what that means is it just starts to become part of regular maintenance. The way I say it, it's you got to pay to play. So overall, what do I think of the Volkswagen Golf GTI, the Mk7? So I'm pretty impressed. This is a nice car. I like how cozy and comfortable I am here in the interior. Granted, this car doesn't have leather seats, but it still has these traditional quilted buckets here. What I'm driving here specifically is the Golf GTI SE, so not the top of the line trim. Now, of course, the interior has a couple drawbacks. Because this car is so small, storage will probably be one of your biggest problems in here. Now, Volkswagen thought of this, and they incorporated these neat little door pockets in each of the 4 doors. And of course, you got a pretty decent sized glove box. You got a little armrest here in the center with some storage, so you got a little bit of room there. You got a sunglass holder here up top in the ceiling, so that's pretty convenient as well. But I love how the center screen here, the infotainment, is very easy to reach. It's right here with less than an arm's reach away. I'm super comfortable here in this chair. It holds your sides pretty well, and you're pretty comfortable, especially when you go through the turns. It's a nice car, and honestly, I was even looking into some Golf GTIs for myself before I got my Accord, but for the mileage I was looking at, they were kind of pricey. Now, like I was saying, this car is in the 30s when it's brand new, but you can find them secondhand with like 30-40,000 miles on them for less than 20 grand. So yeah, this car is very zippy, you know, like I was saying, it only weighs 3,000 pounds, you got 220 horsepower roughly, and then of course it can max out at 240, and it's a very nice drive. It's a very joyous drive. You can drive it spiritedly here like I'm doing in these West Philadelphia twisties here, but when you're going through the turns, you feel super planted. You have a lot of confidence when you drive this car. You know, like I was saying, you got the DSG transmission, and that gives you these paddle shifters right behind the steering wheel, so you can choose your gear. You can change gear that way. If not, you can just slide the shifter over to sport mode and use your right hand. But overall, this is a very nice ride, and I know I've said this probably 3 or 4 times by now, but it's a well thought out car. You know, it's a performance car, and it's a performance car that's done right. Volkswagen did a lot of things right with this GTI, and I'm pretty thrilled with it. You know, these turns are pretty tight. You can give it throttle. You can be hard on it. You know, you got these 18-inch wheels with nice grip. The tires are pretty good on it, and it's confidence inspiring, if you know what I mean. And it's a blast. To be honest, although a manual would be more fun, I'm not necessarily wishing that I had one. You let the car do the shifting, and you can just focus on the handling, focus on the steering. And of course, some people will say, well, you know, if you don't have a manual, then all you're doing is steering, you're not driving. But in certain applications, you don't necessarily need to have a manual. And in this application right here, in this execution, this is a very good example. So now I want to talk about interior ergonomics for a second. Volkswagen pretty much hit the nail on the head with this car as far as ergonomics go. I love the way you sit right here in the driver's seat and everything. You got this dashboard that's kind of angled towards you, all of these controls, this radio stack, this center stack here. You got your headlight switch here. You got your doors and mirror switches right here. All your windows are fully automatic, which is nice. So they did a pretty good job with that as well. I love the fit and finish of a lot of things here. The dashboard is made out of a nice synthetic rubber, and it's just not one of those cheap plastic that's going to crack over time. And just everything for the most part is pretty good. I love the steering wheel here, how it's kind of flat bottom and it feels pretty good in your hands here. And it's just a well thought out car. Now, of course, this isn't without any criticism. And of course, because it's a Volkswagen product, it's a, you know, for people who live in America, it's more of a premium car. But you know, when you consider Volkswagen owns Audi and Porsche and all these other brands. This is more of an economy car. So you're going to see some use of some cheaper materials here and there. Like I got this silver trim here in the center console that's starting to flake a little bit. Some of the plastics just, they creak a little bit, so they don't really make that nice of a sound. But even then, for a car that's not necessarily premium or luxury grade or anything like that, although when you compare it to Honda and Toyota, it is more luxury, it's a pretty decent car. It's not perfect, no car is perfect, but overall, I'm pretty pleased with just the tactile feedback of a lot of the interior components here. So, what is the back seat of the Volkswagen Golf GTI like? Well, to give you an example, I am a 5'9" guy. I got this driver's seat set exactly to where I would have it if I was driving. And as somebody who's of about average height, more or less, I got pretty good headroom here. I mean, this car does not have a sunroof, so you get a couple more inches of headroom right there, but overall, I'm pretty comfortable in here, not really claustrophobic. I do have a nice center armrest here, so I can rest my arm in case it's an extended drive, but nonetheless, there's tons of room here for 4 people to sit comfortably. You got door pockets here, so you can store snacks or what have you. You got pockets here in the back seat. You get air vents, so overall, Volkswagen pretty much thought of the rear passengers as well when they were designing this car, and I think they did a pretty good job. So yeah, you can feel that turbo kicking in. Now, I was never really a fan of hatchbacks in general, never really into them, I guess. You know, I always preferred coupes and sedans as opposed to hatchbacks. However, when it comes to the Volkswagen Golf GTI, I've always liked this car. I always feel like this is the definitive hatchback. Pretty much started the whole hot hatch segment as far as things are concerned. Again, if I'm looking to getting a hatchback, it probably definitely would be a Golf GTI. I mean, yeah, you got the Ford Focus and you got the Fiesta and you got Honda Civics and all that good stuff, but I mean, I don't know. I've always been attracted to the Golf GTI, and you know, preferably I would pick a 2-door over a 4-door, even though I'm sure 4-door is a little more practical because you got easier access into the back seats. This is a car that I think I would enjoy owning. I would love to have, and it's cozy, it's pretty compact, everything for the most part is within reach. As you saw, the seats fold down, so it's quite practical as well. You get, you know, a good amount of cargo, a good amount of storage in here as well. But I guess with any small car, storage is always going to be a problem, so take it for what it is. But for what this car is, it's a nice little car. And I know that people buy these and they tune them, they put a bigger turbo on them, or they do a stage 1 and a stage 2 and all that stuff. And yeah, while the reliability might be affected with doing that, at the end of the day, this is you know, it's a German car, it's a machine, you got to take care of it. So I'm sure that reliability wouldn't be so much of a factor if you take care of the car. I know, for example, turbo problems, those were more of a problem on the first year, the 2015s. This is an 18, so this should be cleared of that. But again, I guess it kind of depends on who you ask and how the car was taken care of. So if you are looking at getting one of these cars, of course you want to make sure that you get as much maintenance history documented as you can. Do a PPI. Just do your normal due diligence. So after spending an entire day with the Golf GTI, I guess that only leaves me with one thing, and that's to put my Accord up for sale and look at getting one of these cars, because I just discovered a newfound love. So with that, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did filming it. Please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. That'll help me out tremendously on the channel. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and comment as well. Follow me on Instagram at Garage Denali. I got a lot more coming where that came from. So with that, thank you very much. Take care.